that we talk about a new design or a new form of architecture, a door opens up to the future. The thing is that no design or no architectural form is neutral in its nature. It either hurts or heals its users. Any building designed or any design drawn has its own social and environmental impacts. A building, a neighborhood, and a city has the power to shape the thoughts, the aspirations, the hopes, and the behaviors of the ones who are using it. So what happens when these spaces are creating an environmental version of othering a race? What happens when a neighborhood border becomes a tool for discrimination? How does these spaces affect their users, their hopes for the future, or their chance of having a future at all? When we create white suburbs versus black neighborhoods, or we design apartheid architecture that segregates and marginalizes people and communities along racial lines, along racial borders, to oppress and control them. Or when we do redlining in our urban design that puts services out of the reach of people living in certain areas based on their race and ethnicity, what we are actually doing is contributing to what can be called racist architecture. Well, you might think to yourself that this is something that was happening in the past, or it does not happen in the country that you live in. At the end of the day, none of us are that racist, right? But I will answer to that with one simple question. Are you occupying the same amount and the quality of a space in your city as the other races are? Well, although white supremacy is a concept that really goes back to the foundation of architectural theory, rooted in Vitruvius's ideal man, a white European male subject, but the situation has not improved so much over the years in the way that we view and we practice architecture and urban design. Think for a second. The system is already making it so hard for the Black people, indigenous people, and the people of color to have exposure to the architectural education. The ones who do get to go to the architectural schools don't see their values, their kind of knowledge, and their culture being represented in the educational curriculum, or sometimes even completely erased. When entering the working environment, their type of knowledge and values are not considered valuable. And considering the privilege issues, they always need to go over their limit of excellence just to be seen and heard. As you can see, we are making it so hard for racially discriminated people to even enter the decision-making spaces, keeping the positions of power mainly representing the white male perspective. This is now leading to creation of spaces that gives recognition only to white folks, keeping the rest kinda excluded. And this cycle continues and continues until we break it. We break it in our architectural schools, giving more space to racially discriminated people, hiring and supporting, elevating and amplifying the perspectives that are not heard, the values that are disvalued for so long and are sometimes erased. By sharing the stage with the people who have been racially discriminated for years. It's only when these decision-making spaces are shared between all races that then we can decide what kind of spaces make people to feel safe to exist in public and which ones doesn't. It's only through this kind of representation that we can design and create spaces that are truly inclusive and diverse. We can create spaces that have a sense of place for all races, creating spaces that all people can feel reflected, and creating spaces that recognize the humanity of all the users in its core, where all people can feel their right to the city and included, and cities that have no second-class citizens. Moreover, just a reminder, the majority of the world exists in the global south. And architecture and building has been going on there for a long time, even before Europe. So the question is, what can be learned from those spaces that have not been brought to the discourse of architectural education? The thing is, in the West, the concept of the past is full of racial assumptions of who was civilized and who wasn't, who was modern and who was primitive and therefore, well, left behind. I think the question that we need to ask ourselves is that who decided that one culture gets more recognition and one doesn't get any recognition at all? But of course, these are not changes to be made overnight, and we are all aware of that. But I think it has a really deep-rooted issue in our idea of representation. I think what we need to realize is that if in our society a certain population is oppressed, it means that we are living in an oppressive society. This is not a battle of one group. This is a battle of all of us to have a better future. Thank you for being with us in this moment. I hope you enjoyed this talk. Please let us know if you have faced any racist architecture in your cities, and connect with us and share your ideas, and see you next week.